I don't know how I feel about Night Swim. In a way, it's kind of the reverse experience for what normally happens with a horror film, at least with my experience. Usually with horrors, the beginnings can be quite slow, it takes a while to get anywhere, and then the final third, but certainly often the second half of the film can be quite suspenseful because we start to get to know the threat and it amplifies and becomes scarier and scarier. But for me, I thought the first half of Night Swim was more fascinating and also scarier in the sense that I had so many questions. Once we started to get answers to those questions, it stopped being as good. And I would never say it was scary, but in the beginning it was quite suspenseful. This was released this year in 2024. It's directed by Bryce McGuire and it's written by McGuire and Rod Blackhurst, and it stars Wyatt Russell and Kerry Condon as Ray and Eve. We also have Amélie Hoeferle and Gavin Warren as Izzy and Elliot, and I will say the performances, really great, no problems there at all, and the concept is really interesting. I won't give any spoilers, just in case you decide to watch it. I do think it is an interesting film. It's an okay film. It's not amazing, but there are certainly some good moments. And it's about this family who move into this house, and the father was actually a baseball player. Unfortunately, he is unwell. He has MS. And his doctor actually recommends some low-impact activities such as swimming, and it just so happens that the house they've bought has a backyard pool. And, of course, the film is all about this pool. In the opening scene, something happens to a character. It's set however many years before the main events. That opening scene was really good. It was a really strong introduction. And then the family move in, and, of course, there's this suspense of what's happening with this pool. The pool hasn't been touched in a long time, so they need to clean it out. And I don't know why, but I always find empty pools to be kind of really unnerving. I don't think those scenes were meant to be scary. Well, there was one moment when the pool was empty that was maybe a little scary. Shocking more than scary. But I just find the concept of an empty pool to be really unsettling. And maybe that's one of the reasons why I preferred the earlier stages, because that is a personal, not fear as such, but something that makes me feel uneasy. I wouldn't really want to be in an empty pool. I don't know why, but that made me feel uneasy. And also, I don't like being in water. I used to go swimming as a child, never a very good swimmer, but I went into the pool a lot. And now watching this, just knowing that something at some point is going to happen in the water, that suspense and that element of the unknown really got to me. And if, like me, you're kind of scared of being in the water, it might really play into that fear, and that's all well and good. However, once the main narrative with the horror aspect kicks in, I don't want to tell you what happens, but I think you'll be able to identify the point when things begin to amplify. I found it to be really boring. I don't like the direction they took. I didn't find the manifestation, I don't know how to describe it without spoiling it, but I'm sure you'll know what I mean. I didn't think it was an interesting thing. I didn't think it was scary, and the more information we got, the more we found out about what this threat actually was, the less I seemed to care. So I'd say the first, probably about half of the film had a lot of suspense. The setting up was really good. The characters are really likable, which helps, because if I found them irritating, I wouldn't care about them. But actually, I found the characters to be really easy to get on with. I wanted the best for them. I wanted them to enjoy their new pool. But of course, I, the viewer, knew that something was going to happen. I just didn't know what. And when the somethings started happening, it wasn't interesting. And it wasn't scary. It was dark. A lot of the time, it's very dark. And I have a problem with horror films that turn the lights off just to try and make it spooky and atmospheric, because I feel like it's just a way of making people feel scared for no reason, because a lot of people are scared of the dark, fair enough. But if the action on screen isn't interesting, you can make the lights as dim as you want, it's not scary. And unfortunately, that seems to be the case here. A lot of the second half of the film is set with quite dim lighting, and I can see what's on screen. It's not one of those cases. There are some horror films that'll turn the lights down so low that you can't even see what's going on, and it's so infuriating. That's not the case here. I could see what was happening, but I didn't feel the darkness added to the atmosphere. In fact, I think it would have been better if everything took place in broad daylight, because you don't expect things to be scary in broad daylight. So when potentially scary things happen, I find that really creepy. I love brightly coloured horror films. That's not to say I don't like anywhere the lights are quite down low, but I love brightly coloured horror films because of that dichotomy of the bright, safe light where you can see everything, and then the evil happenings. And maybe that's another reason why I preferred the first half, because pretty much all of the first half, I'd say, apart from the opening scene, and I think one scene where the mother or wife was going out for a swim, the rest of it is pretty much done in daylight, and it's brightly lit. And because I know there's a threat around the corner, but everything seems like it's safe and well lit and everything's daylight and bad things don't happen in the day, I love that. I absolutely love that. So maybe that's another explanation as to why I thought it was better in the beginning. Did I enjoy it? I enjoyed the first half. I really enjoyed the first half, in fact. Maybe the second half will be more appealing to other people, depending on what they look for in a horror film. But I feel like it would be unusual for somebody to love the entire film, because it does feel like two different styles. And that's not necessarily a bad thing if that's what they were going for. They certainly achieved it. But I feel like most people are going to prefer one style over the other, which means at the very least they're going to either prefer the first half or the second half. If you watch it and love both halves, that's absolutely fantastic. But personally, I feel like it's more likely that you'll either prefer one or the other. But that being said, there's a reason why I haven't given spoilers, because I do recommend it. It's not perfect, but there were enough elements in this that I enjoyed for me to say that it's probably worth checking out, particularly if you are afraid of water, or maybe if you spend a lot of time in water. I imagine if you are spending a lot of time in swimming pools, then anything that suggests they may not be all that safe could be scary. But I could be wrong. If water is your second home, then maybe you're too comfortable in that environment for this to have any effect. I'd love to know what that's like, actually. If you are a swimmer, a keen swimmer, is this kind of thing really, really scary, or really, really tame? I'd be keen to hear that. For me, it had the potential to be terrifying. The first half definitely had me on edge. The second half was kind of boring, but I came away from it feeling relatively satisfied and happy to say that if it sounds like it could appeal to you, Night Swim might be one that's worth checking out.